Do you want to paint clouds like Bob Ross in the wet on wet style with your oil paints? Well, you're in luck. I'm going to show you the best 3 ways to paint with a fan brush with your oil paints, and this is perfect for beginners. Let's go. Hey, it's me, it's Wild coming at you, and if you want to learn how to grow with tips and tricks and even tutorials like this one here, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button and tick that bell so you know when my videos go live for you. And hey, at any point in this video, if you like the products or the services that I'm using, did you all a favor put links in the show notes below, so make sure you check them out. So if you're a beginner with your oil paints and you want to dive deeper into wet on wet styles and you're getting held up on certain techniques like how to perfect the perfect cloud, I understand you because it can be very tough, which is why I'm going to show you the 3 best ways to get a perfect cloud every single time you do one of your paintings. Let's start off with our supplies. Obviously, you're going to need a fan brush here, and this one is a number 6 fan brush from the Bob Ross company. I recommend using a nice wide fan brush because it'll give you more creative freedom and actually is a lot easier for beginners out there. More on this later. You can obviously use a smaller fan brush, which are probably a lot of you have out there, but this is a little more difficult or for finer details or for small wispy clouds, but this will work in a pinch. You're also going to need a little bit of linseed oil or liquid clear. Whichever one you have will work perfectly fine. We're only going to need a drop or 2 of these. And of course, we're going to need the star of our show, titanium white, but just to let you know, any type of strong titanium white will work, just like this Winsor Newton brand right here. Now with all of our supplies ready, we can go over to our canvas. Now I already have set up here a nice little basic sky on my pre-stretched canvas. Now to do any good cloud on the wet on wet style, you need to start with a good foundation, which means you have to have the proper amount of gesso on your canvas, and you also need to make sure you have the proper application of liquid white. If you have any trouble with any of those, especially as a beginner, you're in luck because I've already done videos on that. I'll put them in the top of the card in the right corner there or down in the show notes below, so make sure you check those out. Now, step 1 of creating a perfect cloud is actually putting a good basic sky in on your canvas. And one of the biggest problems for beginners is they put too much liquid white and they put also too much color. And you've probably run into this problem many a time is when you start going down with your paintbrush, a lot of that base color, basically your blue, will come off your paintbrush and contaminate the white paint you're putting down. Basically a mud mixer, and you have all this mushing of colors and nothing really stands out on your canvas. Luckily for you, I'm going to show you how to avoid that. For cloud number 1, we're going to take paint right out of our tube. And the first step you want to do is make sure you have enough white paint. A lot of people are kind of stingy with their oil paint because it costs a lot of money, and I understand that. But you have to make sure you have enough of the paint down on your paintbrush for it to stick and grab onto your canvas. We're going to take our fan brush through and put both sides with a good amount of paint. Make sure you wiggle the brush as you pull it through so that way the paint is on the ends of the bristles. Our next step is here, we're going to take the fan brush and we're going to turn it parallel with the canvas and dip our elbow just a tiny bit. And this is going to allow the bristles to flare out. From here, we're going to start pretending like our canvas is a bowl and we're whisking eggs, and we're going to create small little fun circles. And at some point, you're going to go up, down, left, and right, and you're going to add different pressures. And when you add different pressures, this is going to create some different types of crowns to take effect, and it's going to push a little bit more of that white paint on. Cloud has no memory, no particular shape. Have fun with it. The only thing you really need to decide on is if you want big fluffy clouds or thin wispy clouds, or if you want clouds to generally go in a certain direction. But remember, you can't mess up a cloud because there is no perfect cloud. Just have fun with it and have that paintbrush move around and constantly be moving around. Now, if you remember, our paint is straight from the tube here, so it's really nice and thick, which means it's going to apply in a very bold color of white on top of our blue canvas, which is going to create a nice, beautiful contrast. But you'll notice right off the bat when you start applying the white on top of the blue that a lot of it is going to bleed onto your paintbrush and start contaminating. So between different strokes, or when you have to reapply more paint, make sure you take your fan brush through a basic paper towel and pull and squeeze out the excess blue paint before you go back into your white paint. This is how you're going to keep those big, beautiful, contrasting colors that make your clouds look so beautiful and pop right off your canvas. And oh yeah, if you get too much paint on your paintbrush, don't be afraid to clean your paintbrush between applications. If you have too much blue on there, don't be afraid to run it through some paint thinner, dry it off, and then go back into your white. When creating your cloud, one thing to keep in mind is only really concentrate on the outer upper shell of a cloud. The body will be fulfilled in upcoming steps. Essentially, all you want to do is just outline and trace where you think the cloud would look best in your painting. So only concentrate on that. Don't feel like you have to fully put in all of your white paint in every color. Now, when you have that outline of your cloud or that outer shell there, let's start to add some body to it. We're gonna take a 2-inch brush and we're gonna start from top to bottom, and we're gonna do some light, and I do mean some very light X strokes across the entire cloud there. And what that does, it's gonna pull the outer shell of the cloud down, and this is gonna create a nice dense body there for you. And it's gonna give it some more shape and some more character. But again, you wanna do this extremely light, especially if you have a few globs on your painting. Once you get the body shape exactly where you have it, we're gonna do some small circular strokes on the very bottom base of our cloud. And this is gonna add a nice dissipation in round and soft bottom to our cloud. When you have everything there, again, we're gonna do some very light cross strokes of some X's across the entire cloud there. And now we're gonna give that cloud some character and some true shape, like wind is caressing it and kissing through it. And to do this, I recommend just giving it a nice little small check mark as we go up and through. If you're right-handed, generally it's gonna be easier for you to go from the bottom left all the way to the top right. If you're left-handed, just reverse it. Go with whichever way you think the wind is blowing. It's your painting. It can go in any direction you want. In fact, you can have your cloud being split by 2 different directions of wind if you so choose. Now, for a really good tip is don't overwork your crowns. Your crowns are those big, beautiful highlights of colors. It almost looks like the sun is caressing and kissing just the top of the cloud there. So give it a nice little lift there, and when you think it's in the proper position, we wanna fluff it out and make sure everything looks good, almost like you didn't touch it. And to do that, we're gonna go from either left to right or right to left. Depends again on what you feel most comfortable with, and gingerly go across the canvas. And what this does is it works out the entire brush strokes of what you used to create the cloud. So it looks like you did it right the first time and flawlessly. And there you go, you created a perfect cloud. Now for our second cloud that we're gonna do in this tutorial, a lot of people who begin with wet on wet oil paintings struggle getting their paint to stick on the canvas when it comes directly out of the tube. And that's because a lot of different manufacturers have different viscosity levels of the binder of oil that's in the pigment. And so a lot of people struggle with this because Bob Ross paints are a little thinner on their viscosity. They come off the paintbrush a lot easier. So if you have something like that Winsor Newton paint that we showed beforehand, you need to introduce something that's going to increase flow, which is why I recommend using a little bit of either liquid clear or you could use linseed oil, whichever one you have. If you don't have any of those, you can actually use a little bit of paint thinner to help increase the flow. But I recommend using the fattier oils. It's a little bit better for the canvas and the flow. Trust me, it helps out a lot. Now, cloud number 2 follows the same directions as cloud number 1, except we're gonna just put a little drop of liquid clear right on our palette and introduce it to our white titanium paint. Now for this cloud, I'm gonna add a little bit of bright red just so it stands out so you can see the different colors. Now, don't perfectly mix these two together or leave a little bit of the marbling here, because when you take the paint and you start swirling it on, it's gonna create all these different depths because it's gonna have natural highlights due to the white and natural depth to it due to the red color. And it's gonna add these beautiful flares of highlights in there. And again, just follow the same steps like we did for cloud number 1. Now, a lot of beginner painters will find doing cloud number 2 a lot easier because that paint will flow a lot easier off your paintbrush, which is a nice little hack for all of the Bob Ross enthusiasts who are just starting their painting adventure out there. Now, for a cool little tip out there, all the steps we did to prep our paint for cloud number 2 is a great way to add highlights on cloud number 1. You have this thinner paint technically. Yes, it's a little fattier, but it's gonna flow and stick on top of your cloud number 1. So if you wanna add highlights, like if sun is coming from the left and shining down on the right side or vice versa for your cloud, whichever way you feel is comfortable, you can add little bright highlights of white on top of your cloud and just kind of work them in. And this is gonna add a lot more depth to your cloud. Now for cloud number 3 is what I like to call the dancing cloud. If you're starting out and you want to have a little bit of fun, or a more tropical type of scene, or maybe a little more movement of wind within your clouds, you can take your fan brush and load it up on both sides. You can add highlight colors and shadow colors. For this, I'm going to take a little bit of white and a little bit of deoxidized purple, just because I want to mix it up and have a little bit of fun. And make sure you load both sides, and literally I'm just going to do the same technique, except I'm gonna move my forearm and wrist around a lot more and be a lot more aggressive with the canvas as I do circles. I'm even gonna jab the canvas at times. And what this does is it makes the cloud look like there's a lot of movement swirling around in it. I love this technique because, one, you can't really mess it up. It's actually really good for kids because they'll have fun with it. Once you got all of your paint where you need it to be, you just follow the same steps again. You're gonna work out the bottom. You can pull the body down by doing some cross strokes if you want, but all you need to essentially do is work it to where you want for that body, and then make sure give it a couple of lifts. And once you have those few lifts in there, work out the brush strokes, and you're gonna have some beautiful dancing clouds. I love these, especially for waterscapes of like waves crashing on beaches, just because there's that extra motion within the painting. Whew, that was a super long tutorial. Thank you for sticking in, but hey, it was worth it, because you know why? I know that you're gonna start nailing clouds every single time from here on out. And if you do, don't be afraid to let me know in the comments below, or show me a picture. You can always follow me on Twitter or Instagram. I love seeing all the progress that you made. If you guys found this video helpful, don't forget to like and share it with all of your painting friends out there. And also don't forget to subscribe. I will see you all in my next painting video coming out real soon. I post new videos every month. I will see you all next time. Take care, all. Peace.